Do you know someone in foster care? Have you been in foster care? Do you have a child in foster care? Are you a grandparent or relative caring for a family member? Are you considering becoming a foster parent? Then tune in every Wednesday at 3 p.m. to Fresh Start Today on WNOV 860 AM to engage in thought-provoking conversations with families and providers about child welfare services, both locally and nationally. Together, we can save our children. Good afternoon. You're listening to Fresh Start Today. I'm your host, Jermaine Reed, and I have in the studio with me today a very special guest, along with Mr. Sean Roby. We have Mr. Christopher Scarborough, better known as Christopher Scarborough, and joining us very soon will be Nikita W. She'll be here. She was formerly a guest on the show when we talked about youth who have aged out of care. So today on the show, we're going to be doing part 2 to a series that we started the week before last entitled How to Break the Cycle of Intergenerational Incarceration. We're going to explore how pervasive the problem of intergenerational incarceration is in our community, and particularly in out-of-home care. We will touch on that, but what families, communities, and child welfare can do to counter generational or intergenerational incarceration. In addition, you might recall we talked about there are 4.2 million children in this country currently who have a parent who is either incarcerated or who is under the supervision of corrections. And so therefore, along with incarceration comes a lot of trauma, it comes a lot of challenges, and but yet there's some folk who thrive and overcome. And so we're going to be talking to Mr. Christopher Scarborough, and you'll hear me reference him as Chris, and also Nikita W. Joining us around 2:30, I have a very special surprise guest that will join us. So when we get to that point, we'll go ahead. So good afternoon, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man.
Oh, that's great. I just, first of all, want to just welcome you to the show. Fresh Start Family Services and Fresh Start Today, we kind of work to offer a type of program or dialogue with the community about what's going on in child welfare in general, not the system child welfare, but child welfare in general. But we do touch on a lot of foster care related topics or issues, considering the number of African American children who are from the community who are involved in child welfare services. But today I was very intrigued about your story because when we did our first recording a couple weeks ago, we had Right Path Program on, and it's a program locally that works with individuals whose parents were incarcerated between the ages of 18 and 25. And so during that conversation, your name came up when we were talking about the Creative Corrections Foundation that was started by Percy Pitzer, and you were the first recipient of their scholarship. But if you will, can you just introduce who you are?
Named Chris Scarborough. I was born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Just graduated from college, man, and feeling good about life.
You're feeling good about it. You're feeling good about it. And so, what did you major in college?
Sociology.
In sociology. Yeah. Now, why sociology?
I went for business at first, but I ain't no good at math, so I'm like, man, I can't do this. so I switched it over because sociology a broad field.
Okay.
Pretty much you can do a lot of things with it, so I switched it over to sociology.
Okay, well, definitely want to congratulate you. There are so many positive things about you, Chris, and I think it's important to highlight that because sometimes we are thrown into circumstances that are beyond our control, and life has folk have a tendency to automatically associate us with a particular event or circumstance as if that's all of who we are. And so we clearly know there's more to you than what has transpired in your childhood. And the incident that I am referring to was that back in 1992, something very big and major happened in this city that has impacted you directly and indirectly to some degree. And so I want to kind of talk about that for a minute, and it will kind of give the foundation for why we're having this conversation today. But back in 1992, your father, Christopher Scarborough Sr., was the gentleman who was incarcerated, and I'm not sure exactly where he was incarcerated at that time, but he had some very famous cellmates. if you will. Jeffrey Dahmer being one of them, and Jesse Anderson, and something happened, and your father had killed Jeffrey Dahmer, or they say killed Jeffrey Dahmer and Jesse Anderson, and that was when you were about how old?
I'm not even sure if I don't think I was born yet. Probably about 1.
Okay, so it was, you were very young. You were
Yeah.
very young, and so today we're talking about intergenerational incarceration, and thank God that you have taken a different path. And so we want to talk about, for those children that are listening, and parents who have children with an incarcerated parent, what we can do to help support children who have incarcerated parents. So you were a baby when your father went to jail.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know about what happened? How did his incarceration impact you?
Well, I was young, so I didn't know too much about it at first. So, I just knew I was supposed to have a dad. So, I always miss my dad. And it's like I kept asking my mom, when he come home. I'm not sure what she could have said around that age, because I wouldn't have got it anyway. So,
you were asking, you said something very powerful. You said that you were longing, you were missing your father.
Yeah.
And do you think that is a feeling that a lot of children, we're talking about 4.2 million children here whose parent, one or both of their parents are incarcerated under the supervision of corrections, and that's birth children, foster children, adoptive children, but there is a natural desire or innate desire to want to know your parent.
Most definitely. I feel I feel like it's more of a longing as a young male.
Okay.
Because you need a dad. A woman can't really teach a man, can't teach a boy how to be a man. So, it's, you always look for a father figure, I feel, as a young male.
So did you find that father figure?
I look for it in a lot of things, but, I feel like God gave me basketball, and that's where I put a lot of my time in. That was my refuge. And, so.
Well, and that's interesting you say, because, I hate to refer to children as being at risk. I always like to refer to them as being at promise, But oftentimes when you're talking with children, particularly boys, you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? A lot of times they say, what? I want to be a basketball player.
Yeah.
They love basketball. What's your favorite sport? Basketball. But in your instance, given what you were going through, that basketball was an outlet for you.
Most definitely.
Okay. So let's go back here. So in terms of how parental incarceration, initially when you were an infant, you didn't know, you had no awareness of the events that had transpired. You just knew that your father wasn't there. You were missing your father. You wanted your father. And somebody was telling you that your father is, what were you being told when you asked about that? That he's away in college, that he's at school, he's lives in a different city.
I mean, my mom, when I asked my mom, she just told me, he come home soon. I don't know.
He'll come home soon.
I don't know what a parent really could tell their child at that age.
But that's the response you got, that he's coming home soon, and you held on to that.
Yeah.
And so do you think that a lot of children who are dealing with that, they just hold on?
Yeah.
They just hold on to that. He's coming home soon. So birthdays, Christmas, holidays, all these kind of different life events, and dad doesn't show. At what point did you just say, well, forget it?
I was probably about 7. You just get sick and tired of waiting around, and I'm like, man, when he come home, man. So, I kind of just wrote him off. He'll deadbeat, whatever, and all that.
At 7, you were able to come to that.
Yeah, but that definitely wasn't the case, but that's just immature thinking. And
I don't know if this, well, maybe you want to say immature thinking, but it's age development. I think it's age appropriate, thinking. At 7 years old, you've been waiting, and I almost liken it to kids who are in foster care when they're told they're going to go home, or you're going to go home, and, well, when I'm going to go home, and you're just being told, and you're just hanging on to that, and when it doesn't manifest, then they begin to just give up a sense of hope. And they move on to something else. Do you think that your father being incarcerated or absent from your life impacted you in the school environment?
Yeah, because when I was young, I used to get teased about it, Got teased about it throughout elementary, I just hear Dahmer name and all that, all kind of stuff. So,
Well, who were teasing you?
just the kids, the
Kids can be real cruel.
Yeah,
These kids can be so cruel.
Mm-hmm.
I held my own, man, and I fought a lot. Got suspended a lot in and out of the school,
But in that educational environment, there's a lot that's going on. So when we kind of talk about, I was going to ask you about the social stigma. Did you have to deal with social stigma, how people viewed you or how they responded to you because of something that was completely out of your control, but somebody made a name association, With that being said, were the teachers supportive, the administrators supportive of you knowing what you have encountered or what you were living with at that time?
You mean at the elementary
school level?
I'm not sure. I can't remember that way back then. But
So when you're getting into lots of fights because people were teasing you because they'll bring up Dahmer this, Dahmer that, and so they knew that you were the son of Christopher Scarborough.
I think they heard it from their parents. They brought it to school. Just that young, you don't know about stuff like that.
So for
and I don't mean to just cut you off like that, but I think that's a very powerful statement because children, we learn from our environments for the most part. And so if you hear your parent or parents or relatives or even the teacher saying, oh, that's such and such, and not understanding totally how that's going to impact that individual child, and that leads somebody to only fend the best way you can.
Because, and that's really important because I know in child welfare, I had an opportunity of parenting a kid that whose father had been involved in a murder, and it was a pretty high profile case. And these children would actually go to school, playground, wherever, and start talking about the incident,
Wow.
Just daycare or wherever. It was important to them. And they had saw their father on the news, and that's how they had learned about it. It was on the news as well, and so no one had prepped them or prepared them, and then they just happenstance, they watched the news, and there it was in their face, but my whole point is that in the school environment, sometimes kids will talk about it, and other children had an awareness of what was going on or what happened over there at this particular location, and it's in kids' face. And so that's what I want to know in terms of, as parents and how we can work with kids when we hear about these situations, making sure our children, who may be a classmate of this individual,
right,
what information we provide to them or help them learn how to handle those situations.
And, I think it's a very sensitive subject for adults who may have never been trained or educated on how to talk to children about particular conversations, one being sex. A lot of parents to this day have an issue using correct terminology when talking about sex. So we use nicknames and code words like TTs and PPs and things like that. So we have to be available and prepared to have real conversations with our children very early. And it sounds like, and I don't want to make this assumption, but Chris's mom, she was saying he'll be home soon, instead of just trying to explain it in a more detailed way. Because
I think, we've kind of talked about this before when we're dealing with incarceration in terms of what is the best way to tell children about their parent being incarcerated. And some people say they're at school, some they're on vacation. Other people feel, and we have a guest here, Nikita, she just joined us. Some other folk feel that you should just be straight up honest with them. Your mother, your father's incarcerated. Nikita, what do you think about that?
I honestly think it is best to just be honest and let them know where they are, because at that moment it becomes a teaching moment. You're able to teach them about making correct choices, making bad choices, as well as a consequence of making those choices.
Absolutely.
Now, your parents, both of your parents were incarcerated?
Yes.
At what age were your parents incarcerated?
I want to say when I was 2, because that's when I was taken into foster care.
You were 2, and when did you exit foster care?
About 16 and a half, 17 and a half.
Okay, so and then you went
16.
into...
I got my own place.
Into an independent living program. Okay, so the majority of your childhood was raised in foster care.
Correct.
Okay, and your parents throughout that time period were in and out of jail or prison.
Correct.
Okay. Did anybody sit down and talk with you about that experience? And as you grew up, went through different developmental stages, was there a point in your journey where you would have wished somebody would have set you down and told you XYZ?
As far as the first question, no, nobody ever sat me down to discuss what was the choices that my parents made that made them go to
Case managers?
No, nobody told me about it. A lot of the time, I never knew why I was in foster care. I just knew that I was in foster care because my parents were on drugs, and that's just all I've ever assumed. It wasn't until I got older as an adult and started asking questions where I knew the details of what actually happened, where, my mother was incarcerated, where that's where I believe from listening to my father, we were left with my grandmother, and somebody called the people, and the people came and got us. And
the
so,
people, and that's what we said.
The people,
we call them the people.
the people, we call them the people.
Right.
And so somebody called the people, and then we was taken into foster care from there. And
you never went back.
We never went back.
Now, did you have multiple brothers and sisters?
Yes, I had.
siblings?
Well, my mother has a total of 6 kids.
Okay.
And
And were they all placed in?
Yeah, we were
somewhere?
all placed in separate foster homes. So I think my oldest brother and sister were placed in a foster home together. 2 of my brothers were placed in a foster home together. I was placed in a foster home by myself, and then I have another brother who his grandmother ended up getting custody of him.
So this question is for both of you. When did you all find out that your parents were incarcerated? How old were you, Nikita?
I want to say probably like 11 or 12.
About 11 or 12. And you came in at 2 and you found out 11 or 12. Chris, when did you find out?
I was about 10, man. I was, on demand. I was tuning in a little CNN. I seen Jeffrey Dahmer's name, so I'm like, man, let me check this out. So I clicked on it, started watching it. Then I was eating cereal. There was eating some Apple Jacks, man.
I love me some Apple Jack.
So I clicked on it. Big picture of my pops popped up, and I just paused right there. And I'm like, man.
And what did you feel, if you could share with us as a 10-year-old, and there's other 10-year-olds that's going through similar situation, what did you feel at that moment?
I was just shocked.
Did you talk to anybody about your feelings, or
No, I ain't even tell. I ain't talk to my mom or anything.
Did she suspect? Did your behaviors change any kind of way?
I don't think so, no. I always kept it suppressed, I ain't never want to talk about it, period. So, it was just like, man, I knew exactly what happened now then. So
Is that, and did it make a difference now that you knew what happened or why it's been so long? Did it make you feel more compassionate, or did it make you feel at 10, I understand now, I'm cool with it, or did it make you angry?
it made me angry towards him.
Toward him.
And I didn't know the whole case. I didn't really even understand it, but I just knew that he definitely wouldn't come home at that point. I'm like, man, I just wrote him off. So, that's how that played out.
Now, in your case, Chris, your reality at that point was that he's never coming home, and you wrote it off. In your case, Nikita, is a little bit different. We flip it. Did you ever desire to go home, or was hoping that your parents would become stable so that you could go home?
As a child, I always, as a child, you want to be with your parent regardless of what your situation is. You know that's your mom. You want to be with your mom. But I think eventually, I just knew it wasn't never going to happen. So you become okay with it.
You become okay. You learn to adjust.
And and I think, well, first of all, I think just kudos and accolades to both of you, because to share your stories, and there's so many children and young youth just in general who have similar experiences, it's very powerful to let them know that, one, you're not alone, because there's so many people who have a story, and I think that is so powerful.
And something both of you are saying, but particularly Chris, when you talk about you internalize this.
Absolutely.
And see, parental incarceration is a traumatic event, what they call ACEs, adverse childhood experience. It's trauma. Children who are removed from their parents and placed in foster care. Foster care is a traumatic life event. It's not a vacation. It's not going to Disney World. It's going into a system, and sometimes a system that, as you indicated, Nikita, nobody even talked with you. You just knew you were in foster care. Didn't know why you're in foster care, but you're just moving from house to house, home to home, environment to environment, but nobody really talked to you about your circumstances. But what you said, Chris, was that you internalize this. You internalize your feelings. You internalize. How many children do you think that's in our community? I mean, I don't know. Did either of you ever receive therapy for parental incarceration? Your parent being incarcerated? Either one.
No, I didn't for parents' incarceration, but I think for a lot of children in foster care is that they require them to go therapy, but I don't think they do it. Of course, like I've told you, had this conversation. I don't think they do it necessarily to tackle the issues that the child is actually going through, but it's all about it's a money thing. So
You think it's about a money thing. What about you, Chris? Did anybody ever recommend throughout your journey in terms of helping you to cope and strategy, mental health services or?
Nah, my therapy was basketball, man. That's where I took all my problems, everything.
There you go.
That was my refuge, man. Everything.
So getting children involved, finding something they're interested in. Because you started basketball at what age?
Probably about 5, 6. I was young. Man.
Okay, I got you.
Well, wait, did you start with the sock? And throwing the sock in like a okay.
Crates.
Caller,
man,
you go.
Caller, you're on Fresh Start today. Do you have a brief comment or question? 15 seconds.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Jimmy John's Community Journal. I got a brief comment. Mother been a foster parent for over 20 years. She raised 3 of them. Ex and her foster parent, her and my stepfather.
Okay. Yeah. We just had a little technical difficulty there. You might have to call back, Jimmy. So, according to the Annie E. Casey Foundation, there is no solid evidence that parental incarceration predicts later life incarceration among prisoners' children. However, others will argue that children of incarcerated parents are many more times likely than other children to be incarcerated as adults due to a number of risk factors that were present in the child's home. Some risk factors like drug abuse, poverty, single parent or family violence, whatever. At any point in your lives, did you feel like this was your lot in life, that you will become incarcerated?
no.
Never. Like, I made a promise to myself. No, I ain't never ended up in prison.
So what is the message there for other young people, young folk in our community who have a parent who's incarcerated?
Break the cycle.
Break
man.
the cycle.
Like
Break the
just-
cycle. And what advice would you give? Tell me to break the cycle. What does that mean exactly?
That means to understand that you're in charge of your destiny. You are the one that determines your future, not the media, not nobody else, not no research statistics. Everybody is in charge of their own future.
Because we're so
That's
evidence-based
powerful.
driven,
That's
you know, this is what so-and-so say, so-and-so say, you know, but not allowing yourself to be pulled into that and recognize that you are in charge of your destiny. And I'm sure that we all have had some deficits and some things that have happened in our life, but ultimately at the end of the day, no matter how bad circumstances were, you know, that we were not responsible for them and that we can break the cycle. Now with you, I mean, Chris, you had your father's name.
Yeah.
How does a person separate themselves from their parent, whether their parent is Joe Smith or whatever? But your case was such a high-profile case. How did you carve out your own identity?
Well, it was just like when I found out that what he did, you know, I was just motivated to just be me.
Okay.
You know? Like I my name Christopher, but you know I went by Chris. You know, like
Okay.
this is my name. I'm gonna be.
It's your name.
I'm Chris Scarborough. You know, he Christopher Scarborough. That's how I did it. You know.
Okay.
But, you know, that's immature thinking, and you know, I just always told myself I ain't gonna end up like him. I ain't gonna end up like that. You know, I'm gonna live a better life. So.
What about you, Nikita? How did you carve out your own identity?
I guess like I've always been a determined person. Like I'm not gonna say that I didn't fall a couple of times.
Okay.
I was a single mother.
Okay.
I was a teenage mother. So it's like I still, you know, fell a couple short in certain areas, but it still made me continue on. Like you know, where being just in foster care, they say foster children don't go on to go to college. Now I'm in my master's, about to have my master's degree.
Wow. So both of you are college graduates. Congratulations.
Thank you. And then just even as a teenage mother, it's so many teenage mothers who don't go to college. They don't further on to get degrees. But I was just one of those who was determined that no matter what, I was going to provide a better life for my children than what I had. And so that's my motivation. And it's, even as a student, I always strive to excel and be the best that I could be, as always, because that was just something that I wanted for myself, was to try to be the best.
So you took your negative situation and you used that as fuel for you to accomplish something that's better. Okay, so a better life outcome for yourself and also for your children. I think that's what this is really about, is breaking the cycle so that our children can have a different life experience than what we have. So do you all think that girls deal with parental incarceration different than boys deal with it?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's a gender thing. I think it's more about how many. It probably breaks down to the support system, or how many people that they have in their life motivating them. If you got strong men motivating a young man, I believe that he has the ability to make the same good choice about his future, just as as a woman, if she has motivating people that's encouraging her to do better, they'll make better decisions as well.
Chris, what do you think? Because even how we socialize boys and men to deal with pain and deal with problems, it's a little bit different than how society in general grooms and deal with females.
Like she said, support is definitely
Support.
Yeah, support. That's number one. Like, you got to feel like somebody behind you. Otherwise, you're more susceptible to give up. And another thing is having an outlet. You got to have something to. You got to have something that's yours. Something you can take refuge in. Some. Unfortunately, I feel like God gave me basketball, so that was mine. But it's important to have an outlet, I feel like.
Caller, you're on Fresh Outlet. Do you have a brief comment? Hello, caller?
Yeah, this is Percy Pitzer from Beaumont, Texas.
Well, hey, how you doing there, Percy? Percy Pitzer, for those who are listening in Milwaukee, he is the CEO, the founder of Creative Corrections Foundation. How are you doing today, Percy?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I got your friend here, Chris, in the studio.
Hey, Chris, good afternoon.
You called at the right time. I knew you were going to call around this time, but where we're at in our questioning or in our interview is really important, because there is a intersection here. We were just talking about some of the things that children, adolescents need, who are, what some people term it at risk, but I like to refer to them at promise. What do they need to help them thrive and overcome some of their challenges? And they talked about having a strong support system. So can you talk about the Corrective Creative Foundation? What kind of support do they give to children, and what particular children that they support?
Well, as you know, I'm a retired warden with nearly 30 years in the systems, and seen a lot of children come through visiting rooms, and you could almost pinpoint those who were had a high potential of following in their parents' footsteps, and and our goal is to try to prevent that. And I think Chris explained it extremely well. You have to, obviously parents is the best solution. Parents that are together and providing support to their children. But in absence of that, you have to have a community that understands what these kids go through. I mean, the average person cannot imagine the trials and tribulations that these kids go through. I just seen a report on the news on Milwaukee, for instance, 117% increase this year, if it's accurate, on homicides in Milwaukee. It's something that has to be dealt with, and what we deal with is children of incarcerated parents, and the community really has no idea what these kids go through. The stigmatism of having a parent incarcerated. And one of the things that we're finding out, and of course I knew for years, that because a person is in prison doesn't necessarily mean that they don't care about their children or the children of other people that's incarcerated. We've gotten probably right around $30,000 in contributions from inmates who are very much supporting our foundation, ccefscholarships.org. And, within the next 90 days, we're visiting 97 prisons in Virginia, in New York, and Texas, and bringing the inmates aware of this program. And I suspect this year their contributions will probably double. It takes everybody to work with these kids.
So it's inmates who are donating, Percy? I'm sorry to interrupt you. You said so it's inmates who donate to this foundation to help some child of an incarcerated parent go to college.
That's exactly right. College, vocational school, trade school, whatever.
And how long has this foundation been in existence?
We're fairly new. We're a little over 2 years.
Okay, fairly over 2 years. And how many states are you all in now? Where's your presence at?
6 states, I believe. New York, Virginia, Texas, Colorado, the Milwaukee House of Corrections, and there's one more state, and I can't think of it. I was going to write them down.
But 6 states at this
point. Oh, in Ohio.
Okay, in Ohio. And so we want to give kudos out to the House of Corrections again for their partnership with you all, which allows those inmates to make contributions to this educational fund. You had mentioned on an interview not too long ago that it is cheaper to send a child to Yale than it is to jail.
Well, exactly. I mean, we have a partnership right now with MATC, the Milwaukee Area Technical College, where we work very close to get kids into a program, either a high school and VT program, or if they have a high school diploma, a vocational training program. And to keep them off the streets and get them an education so they can get a job and go to work and not be involved in crime and end up in prison.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned something a little bit earlier. I'm going to throw this to the guests here. You had talked about the community not really having an awareness of what these children go through, both emotionally, behaviorally, and spiritually. That every aspect of their lives are touched by this incident of parental incarceration. But you talked about the community being supportive. Earlier, I was talking with Chris, and this very same topic came up around community support. Chris was somewhere in Wisconsin. Where were you at?
Boscobel, Wisconsin.
Where?
Boscobel.
Boscobel, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And it's my understanding that, Percy, that's the place that you're from.
That's where I was born and raised, yes.
Born and raised. Now, what is the population in Boscobel?
The last I knew, it was about 2,700 in that vicinity.
Now, the thing that I found real unique, and I know this going to sound kind of crazy, but you all understand where I'm coming from. Now, if Chris was in child welfare, we send kids all over this state. We'll have you in Baraboo. We'll have you in Lady Smith. We just place kids all over. Wherever there is a loving, caring, supportive home, we'll send you there. We got to drop you off in an airplane. We'll get you there. But most black kids don't be in we don't know nothing about no Baraboo. What you call a Boscobel?
Boscobel.
So how did Chris get to Boscobel?
Well, I think, and Chris, you can correct me on this, but I think you got to Boscobel and one of the teachers took you in and allowed you to finish high school there. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. But I came out there with some friends that I met in the pre-college program, man. I went out.
A pre-college program?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when were you involved in the pre-college? How did you find out about a pre-college program?
I used to go to Grand Avenue Middle School and UW Richland College. That's the pre-college program. They used to come to Grand Avenue and talk to us about the pre-college program, and I signed up, and I was in it ever since like 7th grade. So
that's really powerful. That partnership right there pretty much set you on a very positive track.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you met some friends, so having some solid friendships, and these individuals lived in a different community, and you followed them there, and then there was a teacher, that one caring, loving, supportive adult in your life that every child needs.
Yeah, Rich Snyder.
Rich Schneider. Well, we just want to give kudos to Rich Schneider. But as it relates to community, I had asked you a question. With some of the challenges that you were facing, that you were dealing with, life experience, how life happened to you at that point, that if you felt that you were embraced by the folk in Boscobel.
Most definitely. You know, I felt everybody showed me love out there. So, you know, that was big, huge.
That was huge for you. Did they know anything about your story, about where you came from?
Nobody never said nothing to me, so it was cool. But I'm sure they did. You know, it's a small town, so
It's a very small town.
nobody never spoke of it.
But they loved you. And the interesting there is that, you know, that children need support, whether they're in a Boscobel, whether they're in a Wauwatosa, whether they're in Milwaukee, but that community, that village
Absolutely.
needs to be such that it's going to help children be the best that they can be. And I asked you a question. If you think, given all that you've gone through, if you would have stayed in Milwaukee, what do you think would have happened?
I don't think I would have been, you know, just like bad or anything, like messed up. But, you know, here in Milwaukee, you know, it's kind of like crabs in a bucket. You know, everybody pulling on each other. You know, it's not a lot of support here, and you know that's the bad part about it. You know, I love my city, but it's crabs in the bucket here. Everybody trying to step on the next person. So, you know, it's.
So with Creative Correction Foundation, somehow you got connected by a friend who was a relative of Mr. Pitzer.
Yeah.
And so what was that experience like, working with Creative Corrections Foundation? How did you apply? You know, what was the criteria? And Percy, he can chime in as well for those who are listening and want to know, hey, I have a nephew, I have a niece. I am that individual whose parent has been incarcerated. I'm going to school. I'm in school. I want to know about this program.
It was Percy's nephew, Tyson. He told me about the program. He told me that I might qualify. So I read about it, and I applied for it, and, you know, I was approved for it. And since then, man, it's been real helpful for me throughout my whole college experience. You know, it's definitely been helpful.
Percy, what's the criteria for
Well, you have to have a parent that's incarcerated or under some sort of supervision. You got to be recommended by 3 people in the community.
Okay.
You got to apply for a Pell Grant, because that tells us their financial needs, because we don't go on GPAs. We go on whether a school accepts them, and they have to be accepted by a school. And then they have to write us an essay telling us why they think they should receive that scholarship. Anybody who wants to apply can go to our website, www.ccefscholarships.org. And we also need the community support in donating. You know, when we started this foundation, my wife and I actually put over $200,000 of our own money into this foundation to get it started. I mean, and we get nothing out of it other than the fact that somebody like Chris graduates from college. We don't take a salary. We don't take any money out. And for the inmates, every dollar the inmates donate to the foundation goes towards scholarships. We take nothing out of that for any administrative cost or anything like that.
That sounds like a great opportunity for a number of children who are in our community. And so, again, we want to say thank you for your vision. Thank you for the investment that you and your wife have made to improve the quality of life of so many children, not just black children, but white children and Hispanics. And I think you're absolutely correct that private donations is something that it's a level that we all can get engaged in, sending our $5, our $50, our $100 to help give some of the children who are the most vulnerable in our community a great opportunity. So again, thank you for that. And hopefully we'll be able to have you in the city of Milwaukee and meet you personally and see how we can support you wholeheartedly rather.
Well, I appreciate that. One thing I'd like to mention, you know, Chris just graduated from college and he really needs a job. So if any of the listeners out there has a need, please give him an opportunity.
Oh yeah, we're going to get to that. You know, that's my last pitch right there.
Yeah.
But he deserves. He's a great guy. I've enjoyed his presence, and his story is amazing. He and Nikita are just portraits of resilience and courage, and we're going to do what we can do to help both of them.
Yeah, and I have a lot of respect for Chris, and what he's been through, what he's accomplished, and where he's at now. And I still call him and saying, "What are you doing?" And making sure he's on the right track. So.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Percy. It's been great talking with you, and I'm sure we'll be in contact. You have a great week, and I don't know if Chris want to say anything to you before closing out this segment.
Appreciate it, man, all the help and everything, man. You have a good one.
Yep, you too, Chris.
All right.
Stay in touch. And thank you for letting me speak. Appreciate it.
Anytime. So we're going to take a brief break, and then, wait, we have a caller online. Caller, thank you for holding. Caller, are you still there? All right, we're going to go and take a break, and then when we come back, I'm going to ask them some more questions about who they are, their vision, and what other children can do to deal with parental incarceration when we come back on Fresh Start Today. You're tuned in to Fresh Start Today. We have a caller on the line. Caller, you have a brief comment or question?
Yes, how you doing? I have a comment for one of the gentlemen that's on the panel, Mr. Scarborough. So I'm just curious, how old are you, young man?
How old are you? Am I?
Yep.
24.
How old are you?
24.
Oh, you're 24. Oh, okay. Well, listen, man, I think you're going to make it. You know what I'm saying? I heard you saying that you don't turn out like your old man. I don't know are you still active with your dad, or you haven't been active, or are you writing, or have you been active at all?
He actually called me yesterday. I was working out when I accidentally pressed decline. I missed the call, but I'm still in contact with him.
Well, stay in contact with him, man, because regardless of his situation, he needs you, and guess what? You ain't gonna turn out like that because you're around the right people right now. Okay, I think you'll make it. And you said you don't want to turn out like him. Well, I think anger was probably one of his issues. Just anger, because he wasn't sent to prison on a robbery charge, anything like that. It was he felt that it was a racist type of thing that was done to him, and I'm sure you've talked to him. I'd like to meet you because I could tell you some things, some people you could meet up with. But I tell you, man, you're gonna be all right. Stay away from this negativity out in the streets, and you'll make it, because we're all at risk. Okay, I've been at that risk.
All right, thanks a lot for calling Fresh Start Today.
Appreciate it.
All right. Now let's talk about the relationship for children who have parents who are incarcerated for whatever circumstances. Do you think that ongoing communication or developing a relationship with that incarcerated parent is healthy for that particular child?
Oh yeah, I think it's healthy. You always want to know where you come from,
Absolutely.
It's always good to know your family. I unfortunately didn't get to know my father's side of family until I was in high school. So, being that Milwaukee is very small, we've been in the same circles. Like, I had a cousin that I had been knowing since elementary school and didn't find out till high school that she was actually my cousin.
So it's important, do you think, from your perspective, to keep children connected to their community? Out of home, in their community, because you might run into uncle, auntie, cousin, grandmama, so and so on this side of the family. So having those community connections is important for some children who are in situations like yourself.
Yeah, because it's always, it's more resources out there. It goes back to that support system. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure a lot of my father's side of the family would have wanted to be there for those graduations where I didn't have nobody at graduation. Those important moments in life that I had where I didn't have nobody, I'm pretty sure they would have wanted to be a part of that.
Chris, why did you come back to Milwaukee?
I came back primarily for my little brother. He's 15. I remember how it was at that age. It's a hard age, and it's an important age. It kind of dictate where you're gonna go in life. And I remember how wild I was. I was in the rush to be a man, and he kind of. I know how he feel right now, so I'm here to guide him, because I ain't have nobody to do it for me. So,
and everybody needs somebody. When you were growing up, who was that somebody for you?
It was a number of different people. I had my auntie. She my number one supporter. I always say that she's my number one supporter, and her just being there, that it made a world of a difference.
All right, caller, you're on Fresh Start Today. Do you have a brief comment or question?
Yes, I do. I would just say to the young man and young woman that's on there, oh, my heart goes out to you. I retired from the House of Correction, and I worked in the school system, and I've always been a person that tried to help the young. That's my heart, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you having the nerves and the get up to come on the radio, public radio, and say the things you're saying. And I still keep in touch with guys in prison, girls, and so forth, to try to give them a little hope. And I'm almost in tears to know how you have just stood up. And I knew your dad from the prison system. I had Jeffrey Dahmer, and all of those guys. So it's just making my heart glad to know that I've touched a part of the family. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Fresh Start Today. Now, I have to do this. I have to say that if anybody is interested in providing foster care, because this is a program that is connected to a foster care agency, you can call 414-351-1100. Now, going back to the interview, Christopher and Nikita, I think you all are two amazing examples of resilience and strength and courage. And and we have a tendency to judge people because of their, circumstances. And sometimes we are judged because of choices and decisions that our parents have made or circumstances they were in. Mm-hmm. But what you all have demonstrated and continue to show us is that you can rise above all that and you can be your own individual, and that is so important. As it relates to you, Nikita, and coming up in the system and parents, let me ask you both of you, were you ever angry with your parents? And how did you address that anger?
Yeah, I was angry. I'm not gonna lie, it's even as an adult, sometimes I look back and think about situations and I get angry again. But I write poetry, so I just
an outlet. Yeah.
I channel that into my poetry, and that's how it comes out. And then on a flip side of that is my thing is I give back to the youth. That's why I work for the Boys and Girls Club, because they're experiencing a lot of what I've experienced, and so I know how important it is to have that person in your life that believes in you no matter what. Somebody that that knows that no matter what, that you have a future, no matter how you grew up, where you grew up at. Somebody that's going to instill in you great values and stuff like that. And I know how important that is to a child, especially a child that when they go home, they want to get back to the club because they don't want to be at home. So
what can the community specifically do to support this population of children that's going through changes, vulnerable home life? What can we do?
Stop labeling them.
Okay.
I think that's the biggest thing is putting labels on everything. When you put labels on everything, you put them in categories. You're basically planning out their future for them. The same thing.
Do you think we have low expectations for children? Whether they're children in foster care, children whose parents, children who are poor, children whose parents have been incarcerated, children parents on drugs, that we have low expectations.
I believe so, and I think that's why I think a lot of things happen the way they do. Like I went to a site and I was talking to one of the children, and it was a pretty rowdy group. And the first thing they said is, "We're the bad kids. Everybody calls us the bad kids." What people don't realize is when you start labeling a child, or when you start telling a child, "Well, you're not going to do this," or "You're this and that," they become that.
Absolutely.
So we need to start speaking what we want them to be.
Yeah.
Start motivating them and start instilling positivity in them, and then you're going to have better and more positive outcomes.
And that speaks to the power of words. And you always hear sticks and stones break bones, but names will never. That's not true.
It's not
true.
So
when we speak positive into people, we can get positive out.
Okay. So Chris, what I need to know from you, as it relates to parents and parenting, because you were a male and your mom was single parent. Do you think at certain times in that relationship, in that journey, there's some friction or there's some whatever as it relates to one of the parents being incarcerated, or what? Was there friction?
Most definitely. Like I said, I think I said it before. It's hard for a woman to raise a man. It's a woman can't teach a man how to be a man. And you know, me, I was in a rush to be a man. I was in a rush to get out here in the world. And, you know, if I could do it all over again, I'd do it much different.
Much different.
You know, and that's kind of the reason why I moved back home from my brother, because I know what he's going through. I remember that age. So, you know, he kind of clashed with my mom, too, right now. So I remember that age. So I want to talk to him, you know, for me being through what I've been through. And, you know,
As a black man, 24 years old, Nikita talks about sometimes she reflects on her past or things that have happened to her, and she gets angry. Do you have those moments?
most definitely. Not no more. When it first happened, you know, I hated them. You know, I wrote them off.
But in your teenage life, in your adult life, do you have those moments, those very delicate moments?
No, it was important for me to reach out to him, and when I did, all that went away. You know,
and when did you reach out to him?
The date was 11/11/11. Actually, that's the first. That's when I wrote him. I was about 20. I was going through it, man. I didn't know where else to turn.
How important was that for you?
It was very important because, you know, everything that I was going through, you know, I bottled it up for all them years, and you know, I finally let go. And turns out that, you know, stuff wasn't even like the way I thought it was. You know,
because society and other folk sent you a message. Yeah,
he a totally different person than what was perceived. You know.
And how did your father respond when he got your letter?
He responded to me with, you know, a ton of knowledge. You know, he responded to me with what he wanted to do my whole life. And, you know, I wouldn't let him because I was mad, you know, but, you know, he was always willing to be my dad the best way he could. But
I saw on CNN where you said that he saved your life.
Most definitely. You know, I was going down the wrong road. I was about the same thing that got him in there. I was about to snap, man. I was about to snap. That's what got him in there, you know. You know, people can only take so much,
right?
You know, you can only take so much getting the short end of the stick out of life, and you know, you just snap, and that's what happened to him. Yeah. And it was about to happen to me, and I reached out to him, man. And
but what made you think to reach out to your father, who you've never met? I mean, what made you say this person may have the answer for me?
I couldn't tell you, man, because like I said, I wrote him off. But, you know, something just told me to write them. You know, I know it was God, man.
And isn't that, okay, because you talk about some God, but there were some unique parallels between your story and your father's story, particularly with Baskerville. Mm-hmm. Your father was in Baskerville when you had went up there, and you didn't know your father was in Baskerville.
Yeah, I didn't even know he was in prison there. My whole thing, I was going there with some friends, man, and play basketball. Basketball was on my mind, you know. I didn't even know.
Your first jobs was at Kentucky Fried Chicken.
His first job was KFC. My first job was KFC. He went to Madison. I went to Madison. All kind of stuff, man.
Wow. Caller, you're on Fresh Start today. Do you have a brief? Oh, that person is hung. I'm sorry about that. So they just played a song called "Ain't No Stopping Us Now." Ain't no stopping us now. Which infers that there's obstacles and challenges in life, and all young folks are gonna have them. What is next for Nikita? What is next for Chris Scarborough?
You go.
You want me to go? Well, I want to keep playing basketball. I'm playing in the ABA right now in Atlanta, Georgia. So I want to keep doing that and, you know, see how far I can go with that until I have to use my degree.
All right, sounds great. We're going to be there to support you, Chris. Nikita?
Currently, I'm finishing my master's in mental health counseling and working on writing my book.
All right, sounds great. Listen, I hope it's a New York Times bestseller. We're going to make it a New York Times bestseller.
We ain't gonna hope
and listen, if anyone is hiring and know someone is hiring that can utilize the services of Mr. Scarborough, please give a call to 414-351-1100, 414-351-1100. I want to see if there's some opportunity to really get to work with Chris, with some other youth who are connected to our program. Thank you for tuning in to Fresh Start. We'll be back next week with a special Father's edition dealing with breaking the cycle of fatherlessness in our community. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back.